All right, so today I want to talk about perspective. I think anytime you come into a business as a business owner, when you first come into that business, you have a certain way of seeing things. It's very limited when you first come in it. But as you start to develop experiences, your mind, your ideology, your perspective starts to evolve. You start to get a deeper understanding about the business, so you start to see it a little bit differently. When I first came into the freight brokerage business, I saw a freight brokerage as an entity, and I saw a trucking company as its own entity. And I still see it that way. I'm responsible for my freight brokerage. If you have a trucking company, you are responsible for that trucking company, right? But now, we also have a responsibility to each other as a freight broker and trucking company, right? Especially small freight brokers. I'm working with trucking companies. Those trucking companies have chosen to work with me. They get freight from me. I use their assets, right? So we are interdependent. We need one another in order for us to be successful. So we have to understand that, I believe. And to have prolonged success, we have to be able to work together to create the best that we can in both of those companies, right? It's hard, very difficult to compete with larger trucking companies and larger freight brokerages on your own. But when you have other companies that you're working with and you're leveraging their skill set and they get to leverage your skill set, they get to leverage your assets, then that makes the game a lot more manageable, right? As a freight broker, my number one responsibility is to go and get freight. We know that we can do that. Your responsibility is bring trucks and to bring dependability, reliability to the freight broker, right? You need to be able to rely on your assets. And I know it, a lot of truck drivers don't want to think that they are dependent on freight brokers. But in the grand scheme of things, in the current system that we're in, freight brokers command freight, right? And if freight brokers have freight, and if you use freight brokers, you are dependent on that freight broker, right? If that freight broker is using your assets, your trucks, he's dependent on you. There is no freight broker without the truck driver, right? Now, truck drivers can go direct to carriers, or the shippers themselves. But many times they choose not to. So that means the truck driver is dependent on a freight broker to go and get that freight. So we have to understand that, I believe. We have to understand that we are living or working within an interdependent environment, right? And when we understand that and have respect for what each other does, I think that's going to put us in a much better place to succeed over a long period of time. I can't tell you the number of times that I've worked with carriers. And when it comes down to dealing with carriers about rates, especially small carriers for some reason, when I start talking about rates and where you need to be, the first thing the carrier will say to me, okay, well, what do you have in it? I might not have even gone to the shipper yet to get a price, right? I am trying to find out from you where you want to be so that we can get that number for you, right? Because if I'm getting freight consistently, but it's bottom line numbers, the freight is not working for you as a carrier, then it's not doing you much good. But if we collaborate together, if we work together and figure out where we need to be on these numbers, then that's going to make the freight that I bring to you a whole lot more attractive, right? That's going to make it so that when I bring freight, you already know that I'm coming to you with freight that is going to help you maintain profitability. And the same thing for freight brokers. I have been saying for some time that I don't think it's necessary for carriers to see what freight brokers are getting in certain lanes. I don't think that's necessary. But as I start to think about it, and a lot of you have mentioned this when it comes to transparency, the carrier being able to see what the freight broker is getting in lanes. Well, if we're collaborating together, you already know what we're getting in a lane, right? If we're working together in those lanes to come up with prices that not only work for me, but works for you, then when you're moving that freight, we're moving it with the understanding that you are making what you need to make for you to be profitable based on you understanding your numbers, right? We don't just want to come and give exorbitant numbers. high numbers just because we can, because we have to understand that we're competing with other truck drivers. We're competing with other freight brokers. So when we start to come together as a team and we're working together, because I'm using your assets, you are using me to get freight. When we're starting to work together like that, then there's no reason why we shouldn't come together on the price. Because the price is the biggest problem that freight brokers and carriers seem to have, right? So if we as small freight brokers and small truck drivers realize that we are more powerful together than we are separate, I think that we'll be in a much better place to succeed. I think we'll be in a much better place of power. I think we'll be in a much better place of being able to compete with medium-sized or larger trucking companies, larger freight brokers, right? Because we're only going to command so much of the market on your own as a truck driver or on my own as a freight broker. But if we come together, we can command more market share, right? At least that's what I'm starting to think right now. Based off of the experiences that I've had in this industry, yes, I can be successful as a freight broker. I'm gonna achieve a certain amount of success. But where is the next level? Where is the next level for you as a truck driver? Where do you want to go when it comes down to your goals for your truck driving business? Where do you see yourself in the next 5, 7, 10 years, right? And if you see yourself at a certain place, do you see yourself being able to achieve that on your own? Probably not, right? Especially if you got big goals. I think that in order to get to where it is that we want to go, we got to realize that we are in a huge industry. I mean a huge industry, right? And in order to get more market share in a big industry, we have to leverage the skill set of one another. You have to leverage the skill set of a smaller brokerage. I have to leverage the skill set and what a truck driver brings to the table, right? And if we don't do that, I think we'll continue to find ourselves at a big disadvantage. You see, anybody can go and start a freight brokerage business. Doesn't cost a whole lot of money at all. Anybody can go and start a trucking business. But the question is not whether you can start, right? People start businesses every single day. But the question to me is, can you start a business and be successful in that business over a prolonged period of time? In order to do that, what I'm starting to see in my own mind and with my own perspective, I am starting to see that it takes a team. It takes a team doing things together, moving together, understanding that this business is about taking care of one another. I can't just be solely focused on my brokerage. You can't be just solely focused on your trucking company. Don't get me wrong, we both have our own responsibilities. I get that. But I have to make sure that I bring prices to the table that's going to work for truck drivers, right? You have to make sure that you're bringing quality service every single time. You got to make sure that you are reliable, dependable as a truck driver, right? And I'm bringing that same dependability. I'm bringing that same service to you as a freight broker. I'm bringing consistent freight over and over again, right? But if I just keep bringing consistent freight to you and I keep bringing it at prices that are not working for you, it's not doing you a whole lot of good. So as I'm starting to think, you can let me know what you think in the comment section. As a broker, small freight brokers we're talking about now and small truck drivers will be much better off, I think, if we work more together than we would apart, than we would just focus on our own business. You just focus on what it is you're doing, and I'm just focused on what it is that I'm doing. It's really hard to do that when we are synced like we are, right? We are interdependent, but we are so focused on just my business, or you're so focused on just your business. In our interdependent business or industry, I think we have to pay more attention to the people that we're working with. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. Don't forget, share your opinions in the comment section. Let us know what you think. If you're interested in learning more about the freight brokerage business, I'll leave a free link in the description. It's my 5-video series titled How the Load Movement Process Works. Brings you into the office with me, and you can watch me as I move loads, talk to shippers and carriers to give you a better understanding of how the business works before you come into it. And then if you're interested in learning more about load boards and how as freight brokers we use load boards to go out and find carriers, source rates, and of course to post our loads, I'll leave you a free video right here. So until the next time, I wish you the very best in your life and business. See you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.